Hi, I'm Jason Arthur. I'm the buyer for the cafes at Barnes & Noble and a former contestant on the Great American Baking Show Season 4. I'm back in my kitchen today with 2 cookbook recommendations filled with tons of recipes that are fun for the whole family. First up is the Complete DIY Cookbook from America's Test Kitchens. This book has easy recipes for all skill levels and is a great gift for those just starting out in the kitchen. For the more advanced young chef, we have Christina Tosi's Milk Bar Kids Only. Christina says she wrote this book because it's the cookbook she wanted when she was a kid. Her recipes encourage creativity and seeing what happens when you add a little personality to the mix. Today we're going to be making Pop-Tarts from the Complete DIY Cookbook, which is one of the more advanced recipes they have, but there are plenty of easy recipes in here too if you're just starting out, and each recipe has a skill level marked at the top of the page. And for Milk Bar Kids Only, we're going to be making the Grasshopper Cupcakes. Now this is a perfect example of what Christina was talking about, adding your own personality to the mix. These started out as just a plain chocolate cupcake with a minty twist. And that minty twist can be subbed out for any flavor that you want. The limit is really only your imagination. And here's what we're going to need to get started on these 2 bakes. To make our Pop-Tarts, you will need 1/2 cup sour cream, 1 large egg, 2½ cups all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter cut into small cubes, 3/4 cup jam, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of cold water. Begin by cracking the egg into the sour cream and stirring to combine. Set this aside while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. Add the flour to the bowl of your food processor along with the sugar and salt. Give it a few pulses to combine. Next, drop in the cubes of cold butter, making sure they're mostly separated. Pulse in the food processor until the butter breaks down to about pea-sized pieces. Next, add in the egg and sour cream mixture and pulse until a ball of dough forms. Tip the dough out onto a lightly floured surface and knead it a few times until it mostly comes together. A few crumbs is okay. Divide the dough in half, shape the pieces into rough rectangles, and wrap in plastic. Stick these in the fridge for about an hour. Meanwhile, let's prepare our filling. In a microwave-safe bowl, combine the jam, cornstarch, and water until the cornstarch is no longer visible. Microwave on high for 2 minutes. Carefully remove the bowl from the microwave and give it a stir. Set it aside to cool. If you're using a filling other than jam, you can skip the steps to add the cornstarch and the water. Just make sure your filling's at room temperature before using it. Remove one of the dough pieces from the refrigerator and roll it out into a rectangle on a piece of parchment paper. Use some extra flour to keep the dough from sticking. You're looking for roughly a 9 by 12 inch rectangle. Trim the edges and use any dough scraps to repair your corners. Divide the dough into 8 pieces and repeat with the other half of the dough. A helpful tip when working with this kind of dough is to chill it in the fridge between steps. This helps prevent sticking and relaxes the dough, making it easier to work with. On half of your dough pieces, spread about 1 to 2 tablespoons of filling, leaving a small border around the edge. On the other half, poke a few holes using a fork to allow air to escape while baking. Using a bit of water, brush the edges of the dough with the filling using your finger. Place a piece of the perforated dough on top and gently seal with your fingers. Crimp the edges of the dough on all sides using a fork. Bake the Pop-Tarts in a 350-degree oven for about 24 minutes until they just begin to brown on the edges. Move them to a cooling rack to cool completely. If you're feeling fancy, add a bit of frosting and some sprinkles to decorate. Up next, we have the Grasshopper Cupcakes from Milk Bar Kids Only. To make the chocolate cupcakes, which are the base of this recipe, you will need 1 1/4 cups of flour, a 1/2 cup of cocoa powder, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, melted, 3/4 cup sugar, 3 tablespoons of light brown sugar, 2 large eggs, 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla, and a half cup of buttermilk, or whole milk if you don't have buttermilk. Let's start with the dry ingredients. To the flour, add the cocoa powder, baking powder, and salt. Whisk to combine and set aside. For the wet ingredients, combine the butter and sugars and whisk until combined. Add in both eggs and whisk it all together. Add the oil and vanilla to the sugar and egg mixture and whisk until everything is incorporated. To bring this batter together, we're going to alternate adding the dry ingredients with the buttermilk into the wet ingredients. Start with 1/3 of the dry ingredients and stir until almost combined. Add half the buttermilk and give it a stir. Repeat with the next 1/3 of dry ingredients and the rest of the buttermilk, and finish with the final third of the dry ingredients. Scoop the batter into a cupcake pan lined with paper liners. An ice cream scoop like this one helps to evenly portion your batter. You should get 12 cupcakes from this recipe. Bake the cupcakes in a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. Allow them to cool in the pan until they're safe to handle. Then remove the cupcakes to a wire rack to cool completely. While those are cooling, let's make the frosting. For the mint chocolate frosting, you will need 1½ sticks of unsalted butter at room temperature, 2½ cups of powdered sugar, 6 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 2 tablespoons of milk, 3/4 of a teaspoon mint extract, 1/4 teaspoon vanilla extract, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and optionally, some mint candies to decorate. I'm breaking out the mixer on this one, but if your butter is soft enough, you could easily do this by hand. Add your powdered sugar, butter, and cocoa powder to the mixing bowl and begin mixing on low speed. If you made the same mistake I did by not letting your butter come to room temperature, a towel over the mixer will help to stop the flyaway sugar. Continue to mix until you get a fudgy consistency. Scrape down the bowl and add your milk, vanilla, salt, and mint extract. Be careful with the mint, it can be overpowering. Continue to mix until you have nice fluffy frosting. Once your cupcakes are cooled, it's time to frost and decorate them. I'm using a smaller ice cream scoop here to portion out my frosting and spreading it out with an offset spatula. Finally, decorate with a chocolate mint candy. And here we have our final bakes. So these Pop-Tarts, I made them with strawberry jam, but feel free to change it up. Grape jelly, hazelnut spread, pumpkin pie filling would all be delicious inside these Pop-Tarts. And these cupcakes, we made them mint, but use the recipe as a perfect jumping off point for your favorite flavors and celebrate your favorite holidays. You can pick up either one of these books, or both of them, at your local Barnes & Noble bookstore or online at barnesandnoble.com. Thanks for watching. For more book recommendations and gift ideas like this, be sure to follow Barnes & Noble on all of our social media accounts. And if you want to see what else I've been baking up, follow me on Instagram at BakesByJason.